Charlie Kirk's own organisation has blamed David LAMMY for his assassination. Not, of course, directly, but because of the things that he has said, because of the things that the Labour Party has said, and a more general commitment recently by the political left to end serious debate and instead other people, and ensure that they are seen by everybody as an enemy rather than somebody who just has a legitimate but different political opinion. Hatred, left-wing hatred, is a major problem in this country today, and I think we need to discuss it in this video. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Please, please, please subscribe to this channel. God, that was a bit beggy, wasn't it? Please subscribe to this channel. Really, really want to get to 200,000 subscribers. But anyway, Turning Point is the organisation that Charlie Kirk founded. They are obviously poleaxed by the assassination yesterday. I have to say, I've seen the video. Maybe I was wrong to have done that, but I didn't think he had any chance after I saw the video of the actual incident itself. But obviously we did pray for him nonetheless. Look, there's no point in me pretending that I knew Charlie Kirk. I know that Martusi did and other people do as well, but obviously I don't. What I'm going to say is this. I want to first of all read to you what Turning Point said about David LAMMY with reference to this attack. Your Deputy Prime Minister, David LAMMY, described us and Charlie as sinister forces and xenophobic. Other Labour MPs have protested with violent far-left activists who attacked us. The language your party and the wider left uses to describe people like Charlie and us is the reason why we face this violence. Shame on you. Look, let me tell you one thing about the difference between a left-winger and a right-winger. There's a couple of ways of looking at this. First of all, people on the left believe that people on the right are evil. People on the right believe that people on the left are stupid. And of course, what happens is the left believe that what they're always doing, what they're always seeking to do is defeat evil. And therefore they go, yes, we know that sticking somebody in a concentration camp is a bad thing to do. But remember, we're saving the country from these evil people. That's why you have in far left regimes, the Laogais of China, you have the concentration camps of Uyghur, you have the gulags of Russia. And I would include, I have to say, Nazi Germany in this and say that a lot of their concentration camps serve the same purpose. The reason is left and right a good dichotomy? I don't know, but I think it's authoritarian versus libertarian, people who believe in state control versus people who believe in freedom. And obviously people like Keir Starmer in that respect is on the side of state control, although only moderately, in the same way that Hitler and Stalin would be indivisible on that particular issue. But I think also there's another difference between the left and the right. We are motivated by love and they are motivated by hate. Let me explain that to you. First of all, you hear them going, oh, it's a disgrace the way that you have this money. It's a disgrace. We need to smash the family. We need to break, what is it, heterosexual normative narrative or whatever it is. They always want to destroy and pull things down and ruin things, whereas actually a right-winger, a conservative, has an instinct to try and protect things instead. Protect your religion, protect your family, protect your community, protect your country. And I believe in the concentric circles of love, as I've talked about multiple times on this channel, which is that you start by looking after your children and your wife, and then you look after your siblings, and then you look after your cousins, then you look after your neighbours, your fellow people in your ward, your fellow people in your local authority, your county, your country, your continent, and so on and so forth. And then I guess your species, which is why I genuinely believe that, gassing young people through all of these new diesel cars that they brought in the 1980s in order to save the polar bear was a bad thing to do. I think you should be more keen on your own species than on another one. But that is also something that the left is seeking to smash with its support for veganism, vegetarianism, and indeed the pagan worship of the ground. And by the way, just to explain to you, I do believe that the movement that killed Charlie Kirk is a religious movement. I believe that Ed Miliband is a religious extremist more than anything else. And the reason is because they're exactly the same as what you would see perhaps from a religion. Let me give you an example. White people are born with an original sin, slavery. We have to worship the earth. we have to look after it and praise it. Then similarly, and look, I'm just going to be honest about this, in Greta Thunberg, a child is born to take away the sins of the world. Well, look, in a post-Christian age, I think we've heard that one before. And so I think that also there's a priestly class who say that they have a right to say what they say, that the science is settled. And similarly, in the case of Charlie Kirk, there is a right to say we will eradicate the heretics in the same way as the Spanish Inquisition would have eradicated heretics back in the Middle Ages. So where are we up to now? Well, look, I've got to be honest with you. I think there is a danger to British politicians, and people in the comment section very kindly say there's a risk to me. I think ultimately, I agree with what Steve Bannon said. You can't be in the industry that I'm in unless you genuinely believe that you are willing to either be thrown in jail or to be killed. And I'm fine with that. Fine with that's the wrong phrase. I accept that simply because this country has done so much for me that I need to give back to this country. But what about the Labour Party? Well, I have to say, what I'm going to read to you next is from a former Labour councillor. So it's not a current Labour councillor, but I think that this will say something pretty shocking. This is Fiona Wilde. She quit the Labour Party in August and now sits an independent in Burnley. I think that's Hyndburn Council, but forgive me if I'm wrong. I don't condone violence, but I do think Kirk made himself the target and brought this on himself. Good riddance to not a very nice man. America needs to get rid of that other tit now. I'm assuming the other tit, and forgive the language, is Donald Trump, a man who's also suffered an attempted assassination attempt. Why can't we just go back to the old system of honourable gentlemen? I mean, I genuinely believe that we should say to each other, I disagree with you, you disagree with me, we don't agree on absolutely everything. And what we then do is we turn around and we say, okay, the reason you're saying what you're saying is because that's your idea. And actually, honest debate makes you wrong sometimes. But then down to what the police are saying, what the CPS are saying, what the courts are saying about all of this. What they want to do is have no free speech, to have no debate. And what is the result of no free speech and no debate? Violence. And because the left are already violent thugs, they think that violence is just a part of general everyday political discourse. It's not. If we immediately start getting rid of free speech, the removal of Charlie Kirk is more likely to instill violence than it is to reduce it, not in the mind of a lefty. But then again, what they think is, if it's not upsetting me, it's not upsetting at all. That is the arrogance that you have from the political left. But we are now seeing a rise in political violence, and I think it is as a result of a prohibition on free speech, not perhaps, as I say, what was going on with Charlie Kirk. And so I think it's time that we had an open, honest and frank debate about all of the issues. And I think the idea that you can simply rub somebody out for standing up for their country, their community and their religion, I find pretty abhorrent. But what are we now doing in this country? Nobody has ever voted for uncontrolled immigration. Nobody has ever voted for us to have been in a European Union that was created as a federal state in the way that it was ultimately constituted. Nobody has ever voted for the prohibition of free speech. Nobody has ever voted for the destruction of our liberty, the ripping apart of our families, the amputation of the genitals of our children. Nobody ever voted for any of that. Nonetheless, it is put into force, and it is something that we are required to go along with, because the people that run this country are no longer a democracy. They are the great experts of our age, and they believe that those people that disagree with them should be first ignored, later locked up, and then ultimately assassinated in the same way that Charlie Kirk did. I will tell you, David LAMMY is a moron, but he's also a bad person for what he's done, which may make me a bit of a hypocrite for saying that you should believe your opponents are decent. Well, I think when you're encouraging violence, you fall into a special category. Until next time, goodbye.